it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Hi folks, it's Chris Gregory here, and this is Bob Dylan, A Headful of Ideas, Season 4, and we're on to episode 13 already. And today we're going to look at Senor, that mysterious song from Street Legal. This one's subtitled, Can You Tell Me Where We're Heading? And hopefully we'll find out. A couple of quotes to begin with. First is from the great symbolist poet Charles Baudelaire from the poem Correspondences, 1857. Nature is a temple whose living colonnades breathe forth a mystic speech in fitful sighs. Man wanders among symbols in those glades where all things watch him with familiar eyes. That's a pretty good translation, isn't it, as well? The second one is from another symbolist poet, Stefan Mallarmé, from the poem For Your Dear Departed Wife. A soul trembling to sit by a hearth so bright, to exist again. It's enough if I borrow from your lips the breath of my name you murmur all night. Senor, subtitled Tales of Yankee Power, is one of Bob Dylan's most celebrated songs of the 1970s. Its mysterious dream narrative, marked by a range of disturbing and confusing images, is extremely beguiling, conveying rising anticipation and a growing sense of panic. This is a song that communicates not only through direct logic, but by symbolic association and intense emotion, in the manner of symbolist poetry. Dylan has performed it several hundred times, and it remains the only song from Street Legal which he's returned to regularly since the 1978 tour. A plethora of cover versions exist. Among the most effective readings are those by Elvis Costello, who really acts the song out with some extreme vocals. Bonnie Prince Billy, Gillian Welch, get that right, and the Jerry Garcia Band. A riveting cover by the Tex-Mex outfit Calexico, with near-spoken vocals by Willie Nelson, appears on the soundtrack of the surreal Dylan biopic, if you want to call it that, I'm Not There. The original recording begins with muted saxophone, then a roll of handheld percussion, before Ian Wallace's heavily ominous drum, which plays a slow and sonorous rhythm reminiscent of a military funeral. The arrangement is restrained and tense. Dylan's vocals are at first rather subdued, increasing in volume as he expresses moments of anxiety. The female backing vocalists are used sparingly to add a haunting ambience. Steve Douglas on sax continues to play a separate melody, suggesting that there's a dichotomy between what the narrator is expressing and what's in the real world. Touches of mandolin, played by David Mansfield, add to the exotic atmosphere. The song contains 5 verses, all beginning with Senor, Senor, and unusually for Dylan, 2 bridges which are positioned after the second and third verses. This unconventional structure allows for a build-up of emotion at the beginning and end of the song, with an icy calm in the middle. The music conveys an otherworldly feeling which is mirrored by the highly ambiguous and imagistic lyrics. The first 3 verses and the 2 bridges communicate their meanings through apparently random association, while in the final 2 verses the narrator seems to be struggling to regain any kind of sense of reality. Senor conveys a visionary narrative which cannot be reduced to any single interpretation. Its powerful and resonant images succeed each other with the logic of a dream. The narrator maintains a conversation throughout with a ghostly figure that he addresses only as Senor, and who never replies to the many questions he is asked. 4 of the 5 verses, including the final one, end in these unanswered questions, leaving listeners to fill in the blanks themselves. Some commentators have argued that given the Spanish-speaking Christians generally address God as Senor, that the narrator is having a conversation with the Lord. Given that Street Legal is Dylan's last album before his religious conversion, it has been asserted that the song is therefore some kind of prelude to the Christian material that would follow. However, while it's true that the narrator appears to be in a state of considerable spiritual confusion, the identity of Senor is never explicitly revealed. The song itself is certainly not any kind of expression of religious devotion, and there are no explicit references to biblical characters or events. The subtitle Tales of Yankee Power, although it has a rather tentative relationship to the lyrics, suggests political and historical subtexts. During the 78 tour, Dylan liked to precede the song with a mysterious introduction describing what had inspired him to write it. This grew more and more fantastical as the tour progressed. At his show in Memphis on 1st of December, he related the following story. I was riding on a train one time from Mexico up to San Diego. Anyway, I fell asleep on this train. I woke up. At the time I woke up, the train had stopped at a place called Monterey, and there was a family with about 15 children getting off the train, and this old man was stepping up to get on. So he was coming down the aisle. I was watching him through the glass like a mirror. I'd seen him get on and watched him moving up and down the aisle. And he takes a seat across the aisle from me. He was about 150 years old, and he was wearing a blanket. That's all he was wearing was a blanket. And I turned to look at him, and I see his eyes were burning like they was on fire, and there was smoke coming out of his nostrils. And I think, this is a man I wanted to talk to. Well, yes, what can you say to that, really? Dylan's entertaining explanation, which sounds rather like a scene from a low-budget horror movie, certainly places a clear image in the audience's minds. It may be significant, though, that Dylan describes himself as having seen all of this after waking up. One can only wonder whether, in fact, he was still dreaming. The song opens with two questions. Senor, Senor, can you tell me where we're heading? Lincoln County Road or Armageddon? Seems like we've been down this road before. Is there any truth in that, Senor? These questions, like the others in the song, will never be answered. Lincoln County Road may be a reference to an area of New Mexico which lies near the border with Mexico itself. The location was famously the site of the Lincoln County War, a murderous extended battle between rival gangs which began in 1878 and in which Billy the Kid was killed. The narrator appears to be asking Senor about the destiny of the world, which is presumably under the control of Yankee power. This may be a serious question or not, but what it mainly establishes is the presence of a paranoid narrator who seems to be experiencing déjà vu and is desperate for answers. Already one may wonder whether Senor is actually a real person or whether the narrator is merely asking himself rhetorical questions. We also do not know whether the conversation is being held on a train, in a car, on horseback, or in a room. The next questions that the narrator asks appear to be about the whereabouts of an unknown woman, presumably the same person who we later learn held me in her arms one time and said, "Forget me not." This is all the information we will get about her. The narrator asks, do you know where she's hiding? We can construct a number of scenarios here. Perhaps she is on the run from bandits and another turf war in Mexico. Or maybe she is hiding from the narrator himself. This romantic farewell appears to have taken place in a vacant lot, in which a marching band, perhaps the source of that insistent drumbeat, is still playing. This recalls the similarly dreamy mention of an empty lot in Visions of Johanna. We're given further clues as to what is going on. The narrator asks Senor, how long are we going to be riding? Which suggests they're on horseback. It could be that, like the lovers in Romance in Durango, they are in flight across the Mexican desert, but there's no mention of police or soldiers following them. The narrator also asks, how long must I keep my eyes glued to the door? It now seems that they are hiding in a house or perhaps a cantina, apparently afraid of being attacked or perhaps being caught by the authorities. We also hear that there's a wicked wind still blowing on that upper deck, which supposedly places them on a ship in a storm. It may be, however, that as this is a dream, their location is changing from moment to moment. Also, we cannot be sure whether we are in any particular historical period. We are also informed that she has an iron cross still hanging down from around her neck, A strange detail which presumably does not refer to the German military medal or necessarily implying kind of religious devotion. The narrator seems to be being bombarded by random and contradictory images which may be part of the story of his relationship with the unnamed woman. None of this makes rational sense, but what is most affecting is the growing feeling of unease that is emphasised by the question, will there be any comfort there, Senor? And the later pronouncement that he can't stand the suspense anymore. In his dream vision, he glimpses a painted wagon, which suggests Wild West pioneers, perhaps coming to assert Yankee power. He can also smell the tail of the dragon. As chasing the dragon is a method of ingesting heroin, this might be taken to indicate the presence of the drug-running gangs that have been so powerful in modern Central America. A dragon also appears in the Book of Revelation, so perhaps we're back in the shadow of Armageddon again. Trying to unpack all of this is, however, as futile as the questions that the narrator asks Senor. It seems as if Dylan has constructed a story here, but has only provided us with a few random details. This leaves us to construct our own version of the scenario. The narrator now looks back at what may be a crucial incident in the story, in which he is apparently under some kind of threat. The last thing I remember, Dylan sings, before I stripped and kneeled, was that trainload of fools bogged down in a magnetic field, which may conjure up a picture of a train having been attacked by bandits who are, rather bizarrely, using some unknown technological device. The narrator certainly seems to have been publicly humiliated in some way. It seems that he does not really know where he is. In the last two lines of the fourth verse, however, some kind of reality seems to strike. Another character is introduced, a gypsy with a broken flag and a flashing ring. Dylan is very fond of gypsies, isn't he? He frequently refers to gypsies in his songs, often to add a touch of mystery. In I Want You, there's a gypsy undertaker, Spanish Harlem Incident, there's a paean to a gypsy girl, One More Cup of Coffee is a gypsy gunfighter ballad. I Went to See the Gypsy imagines a meeting with Elvis Presley. But here the gypsy's role is to bring the narrator back to some kind of reality. He said, son, this ain't a dream no more, it's the real thing. In the last two verses, the narrator seems to come to his senses. Exactly where and in which historical period he is located isn't revealed. Still talking to Senor, who may actually be the revelatory gypsy himself, he mutters in a weirdly ungrammatical pronouncement, their heart's as hard as leather. Then he switches into modern colloquial hip speak. Well, give me a minute, let me get it together. Just got to pick myself up off the floor. Now he seems to be preparing himself to take revenge on his enemies. I'm ready when you are, Senor, he growls. He appears to reveal that he is indeed hiding in a room. He tries to persuade Senor to help him overturn these tables, disconnect these cables. The line, this place don't make sense to me no more, seems to indicate that he has escaped from the illusory world he's been trapped in. He challenges Senor to help him escape, presumably so that his revenge can be wreaked, concluding with the highly portentous, I'm ready when you are, Senor. Whether Senor will respond to this is up to us to decide. For all we know, he's responsible for the predicament that the narrator is in. Perhaps he has fed the narrator some mystical Mexican mushrooms, or maybe he's just a figment of the narrator's imagination. The ominous tone of the final line suggests, however, that some real violence is about to occur. Whether this will be a gangster's turf war, like the Lincoln County War, or the final conflagration of Armageddon itself, is also down to the listener to figure out. The narrator certainly seems ready to assert his Yankee power. Senor is thus one of Dylan's most mystical creations. As with the work of the symbolist poets, it sets up a rich imagistic scenario into which the audience is invited. Once in this symbolic world, it remains the listener's choice as to which scenario they will recognise as real. As indicated by all its unanswered questions, the song could thus be said to be an exercise in creative ambiguity. What does appear to be certain, however, from the lyrics, the mode of singing and the delicately balanced instrumentation is that a new and dangerous energy is about to be released into the world, which will transform it either for good or for evil. We are left perhaps to contemplate one of the song's most searching inquiries. Will there be any comfort there, Senor? Well, what do you think? Will there be any comfort? Please give me some comments, particularly if you're listening to this on YouTube or anywhere else. Go to my website. You'll see the text of this on the website. Also extracts and so on. So yeah, some comments would be interesting. This is one of Dylan's most difficult songs to interpret in lots of ways, so it'd be very interesting to get some feedback on that. That's it for now. In the next episode, I'll be looking at wonderful, again we're back in Mexico yet again, just like Tom Thumb's Blues. So see you then, bye.
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?
Is it rolling, Bob?